Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Barbarian and this is CK3's Dev Diary number 95, Flavor of Iberia, and this one is an incredible Dev Diary because of its sheer length. This is honestly a bit insane because we are talking at the end of the day about a flavor pack. I believe $6.99, am I wrong there? I think it's $6.99, and this is one of those things, you know, when we were talking initially about Fate of Iberia, about this DLC, about the free patch that accompanies it, I said I am quite disappointed by the fact that we have this big framework, the Royal Court and the DLC and such, and I find it a bit disappointing that we have a focus on Iberia, but there is no Iberia-specific, throne room coming in the free patch for Royal Court owners. That was what I was hoping for. Doesn't seem to be the case, and I gotta tell you, obviously I'm still disappointed with that, but with the sheer size of what is actually coming in the flavor pack, I sort of don't feel that bad about it anymore, because what we have right here, to me, when I was reading the Dev Diary, really proved why they have been choosing this flavor pack system, where, you know, basically they have this regional system of injecting some flavor into the world, and I gotta tell you, I'm very impressed by what this can result into. When it comes to Northern Lords, I was fine with it. I think that is basically how I rated it. I was fine with the DLC, but I thought, hey, there could be something here that could really finish it off, and what we can see now here with the Flavor of Iberia is very, very impressive. I can't put it into any other words. It just puts this DLC into a different light, and I think when it comes to the replayability that you will have in Iberia, you will be very much looking forward to using this DLC, and it has to be said, ultimately this does lead me into a situation where I very much prefer this new flavor pack system over the old CK2 system, where most of the flavor, and that doesn't mean that this sort of generic flavor isn't usable elsewhere, but in CK2, most of the flavor that you got was fairly generalistic. You know, if you, for example, were a witch or a devil worshipper in CK2, you would be the same devil worshipper in the steppes, in Iberia, in Arabia, in the British Isles, and so on. This seems to be a thing of the past with how it works here, with what this flavor pack brings. I am very, very impressed. Seriously. Let's jump in, and maybe you will agree, maybe you will disagree afterwards. Let me know in the comments. Of course, it is, as always, very important to talk about this and what our opinions are. This one was written by Hugo Cortel and Ola, aka Vanilikaka. And we're looking at this Dev Diary that is, again, very, very long, so please be prepared for me to mispronounce a lot of things and to probably stumble over my own words. We have filled the Fate of Iberia with flavor content high and low, from fairy tales whispered by a fireplace to grand designs of priests and kings. You might encounter the Estadea, the wandering dead of Galician myth, the legendary Gardunia thieves, great smiths of Toledo, cheese-making Vikings, and Andalusian polymaths dreaming of flight. For Fate of Iberia, we have roped in talented content designers from all over our organization to help us pack Iberia full of historical flavor. There's hardly any subject that does not get some love. This is the overall design philosophy that I actually now appreciate quite a bit more, I think, after reading this Dev Diary, because in CK2, again, as I said previously, of course, we did have region-specific content, but not to the detail as it is here. Just all the topics that are teased right now in this very first paragraph, or in this second paragraph, I should say, are something, are a level of quality that you wouldn't be able to see in CK2, because the core design of how you develop a DLC was simply different. I did also see on Twitter and on Instagram that I believe Veronica, right? Veronica is a Victoria 3 content designer and apparently currently doing her PhD in medieval studies. And she said, and I was a bit surprised when I saw it, but she said on the Instagram that she was working on Victoria 3, but occasionally also on CK3. And that was quite fascinating to me, because how often does that happen? What does it happen for? But of course, I think she probably has contributed to, well, all of this, you know, everything that you have when it comes to the flavor pack. So let's start inspecting what is actually inside of it, what all of the content designers all over the company did, and let's start with culture and faith. Iberia's cultures were in a pretty good place already, thanks to the culture rework in the Royal Court. But we have done a pass on their traditions to make sure they're fitting and interesting. If you have the Royal Court expansion, you will be able to make some compelling hybrid cultures here as well. Why not Sephardi Norse or Berber Castilian? That is definitely something that I want to try to basically enter the conflict, and instead of adopting one of the cultures that is already present, simply forming a hybrid culture, because if I understand it correctly, this lets you be involved rather than an interloper in the actual conflict. That is pretty cool. I would love to do that for sure. Among other additions, you will find the Castilians are now tabletop warriors, able to challenge others to a grand game of chess. Let's take a look at this. This is, I believe, this has to be 867, because all of this is basically... Yeah, this is 867, because this is definitely Asturias that you can see here, which is why Galician and Castilian are striped. And the king must be Astur Leonese, whatever, right? And then we are currently looking at the culture head, Duke Rodrigo de Yegues. So this is not 1066. He has a dapper outfit, though, I gotta tell you. What is going on with the Castilians? Martial admiration, castle keepers, chivalry. I think all three of these are normal. I think all of them are in the game. Tabletop warriors is obviously new, and then we have this one down there. It looks like somebody with is this a Muslim helmet, and this is a Catholic chainmail? They are on horses, and they seem to be friendly. They're very, very close. Definitely closer than Swords Reach would be, or Spear's Reach would be. Is this about multicultural... Could this be about multicultural communication? Something like this anyway. I don't know, they haven't talked about it, but I'm curious about this. Tabletop Warriors anyway is of course the focus of this actual image. Commanders are likelier to gain commander traits, may always challenge other characters to board games, and may wager a personally held county in board games if both players have this rule. There are two things that I'm noticing here. May always challenge other characters to board games. It sounds to me like board games. It sounds to me like this is very similar to duels, if you think about it. There are certain cultures that can always challenge their knights to duels, but even other cultures can challenge others under the right circumstances to duels. So I'm thinking, maybe you can become a board gamer even without this cultural tradition. I just wonder what the circumstances are. It could be a learning, it could be a diplomacy, maybe it is actually the strategist. Ooh, could this be a bit of a buff to the strategist tree? Who knows? Anyway, I do like that you can also wager a county, and in general, I will tell you, I'm very excited to find out how they actually do this. Like, how do you play the board game? I assume it is done in a similar fashion as duels. I highly, highly doubt that they open... that they open chess.com and make you play against an AI, but that is certainly an idea. It also adds to martial, takes away from prowess, and gives you movement speed. Any commander can gamble and get lucky on the day of battle. A real strategist keeps their mind honed through practice and pretend, so that they have no need of luck. Very, very interesting. Sounds, I mean, quite adequate. They were strategists on the peninsula right there. That is a fairly interesting change to Castilian, and I think adds a tradition that is so unique that even 15 flavor packs afterwards, I think this one will make Iberia quite unique and special, right? Now, concerning faith, our new shared head of faith mechanic, we talked about this in one of the previous videos as well, will add dynamism to Iberia's fractured religious landscape. More info regarding this will come in a future development diary. I'm very, 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 very eager to find out about this, because what you are going to be seeing in the next paragraph is something that has me very excited. Whether this will actually lead to anything more generalistic, anything in the future, is something that obviously nobody here can talk about, or nobody knows. You know, I certainly wouldn't know, but I gotta tell you, if this leads anywhere into a general system for this, I would very much welcome it. For vanilla, very much, but also for mods. I think mods have a huge, huge possibility of usage here. There are events for Muslims, Christians, and pagans, but the big addition is the Mozarabic faith. I would probably mispronounce that. Mos Arabic. Let's say Mos Arabic. Try to take control of Toledo if you play a Mos Arabic Christian. It can allow you to convene a new great church council, echoing the one in 711. But take heed, such a council might also affect the struggle. How will your realm be affected by the vicious debates to follow? There are also other new decisions available to Mozarabs, including the ultimate prize, the restoration of the Kingdom of Toledo. This is cool. This is really neat. If you remember my coverage of Northern Lords, you might realize, or you might remember, that I talked a lot about a feature that was never advertised, that barely anybody ever really approached from the developer point of view about talking about it and what it is, right? But I am talking about the wonderful Euro partition feature that was implemented by, introducing the Danelaw and England, and then both of those being able to switch around basically where a duchy belongs just by holding the full duchy. I like that mechanic, and I said back then I would really like it if there was some way of implementing this in a full way, where the Euro becomes a bit different. The point of view that the player has and the relationship that the player has towards point of view towards the Euro is changed a bit. That would be ideal for me. And this is a bit of a similar sleeper feature. That's what I would call it. Ultimately, when you play in Iberia, chances are that you are Catholic, or that you are Mobaladi, that you are Shari, that you are Almohadi, whatever you might be, right? Those are the chances. Maybe there's a high chance that you might also be a Germanic pagan, because that is how you can easily enter the conflict as an interloper. However, making Mos Arabic actually quite interesting to play here is definitely a design challenge. And what they did, ultimately, is introduce the idea of reforming the faith. What exactly this looks like, because what I'm thinking is this could mean that you stop being in communion with the Pope. It could mean that you just turn Catholic. It could mean that maybe you can, like, forbid witchcraft, you can allow witchcraft, right? I don't know how exactly this works, but I hope that I'm getting your brain spinning a bit, right? Where you are now thinking about what would it be like if Catholicism could have this council. If different factions within Europe, for example, could say, okay, I want X changed, I want Y changed, and so on. This system isn't this. I want to clarify this. The Euro partition system in Northern Lords is not a generalized Euro partition system, but the idea, the concept, the base concept is insanely interesting. And I feel this exact same way about this. Mozarabism, listen, I will struggle with this until the day I die, I think. I tried to Google how to pronounce it, I couldn't find anything usable. Anyway, this faith is very, very interesting to me because this kind of feels like a sleeper testing grounds. I really hope that when they say, how might this affect the struggle? Maybe this influences you towards a different phase, maybe you become more aggressive, or maybe in which phase you kick it off influences it as well, right? If I do it in hostility, I become a very angry Mozarabic faith. If I do it in compromise, maybe I become quite the friendly faith, right? I would love to know more about this. I really, really hope that maybe this is a bit of a testing grounds thing. Of course, the mechanic would be very, very different from a general faith reformation, from a general council, right? But this is cool stuff. Keep an eye out for this. I think it will be worth it. Now, here we have Mozarabism. This is an organized Christian faith. It is your faith, further 60%. And we have the Asturian cross right here. I believe this is currently in a museum, although I couldn't tell you where it is. I assume in Spain somewhere, right? Then we got communion, rite, and adaptive. I think adaptive isn't new. I don't see any of these actually being different, any of these features being different from the one that Muwaladi has. Muwaladi has adaptive, right? Am I wrong here? I don't think I am. You can see it as very, very normal in the sense that it is similar, I think, to the Catholic faith, although isn't Catholicism fundamentalist or righteous? I believe so, right? So this is basically similar to Irish Christianity. It is a different sort of Catholicism. They still believe in the Pope, they still follow him, but they are a bit more forgiving in this case. And again, I would be really, really eager to see what the actual council mechanic looks like. You can see here as well, Pope Nicolaus is the head of faith, despite Nicolaus, of course, actually being Catholic. Very, very cool. Keep an eye out for this. I am so interested in that future dev diary and what this sort of council actually entails, because it sounds very fascinating. The Mozarabs have a long history of adapting and to changing circumstances. And here you can see the holy sites. You see it in Toledo, you see it in Santiago, and you see it in Cordoba. Toledo gives you prowess per level of devotion and knight effectiveness. That is pretty good. Not really any complaints. It is also a very spread out faith, admittedly. Only the north is staunchly Catholic, the south is Muwaladi at this point. And then this right here, including Iberia, including the Balearic Isles, is actually Mozarabic. Here we have another one of my favorites, of course, Basque paganism. The other new faith is a syncretistic belief with Christian and pagan elements, the most prominent vestige of pagan faith in Western Europe, ensconced in the Pyrenees. Among rulers, it is a dead religion at game start, but its traditions persist among the common folk, and an opportunistic ruler might find reason to champion the faith of the country Basques and bring it back to prominence. This is really cool to me. Obviously, I have a vested interest in this because of my Let's Play series, but I like this sort of angle on dead faiths. When you look at, for example, fairly recently Christianized regions, such as Bohemia, such as Poland, such as the Slavic areas, so the East Slavic areas of the Kievan Rus, when we look at them, and we look at their old faiths, for a very, very long time, and I'm talking centuries, maybe even today in certain aspects, many of the rites that were commonplace in the pagan era of that area, many of those rites would be still practiced in the Christian society. Because old religions, to this degree, intermingled with culture, meaning they stayed around, meaning superstitions remained, and so on. When you look at the Basque pagan faith, Era Zaharak, as you can see right here, you have a faith that, of course, at this point might even still have had practitioners. I'm not actually certain about that, don't quote me on this, but what it definitely had was an influence on how the Basque population viewed its everyday life. A good example here is what we did in the playthrough, which is Ackerbelts. Ackerbelts is a real thing. Well, it's not a real demon goat. No, what I mean is, that this was a thing that people back then really perceived to do something. Again, the black goat was said to be responsible, when you shear the beard of a goat, was responsible for hailstorms that would follow, right? This is the sort of thing that people still believed in because it was basically not in their DNA, but in their culture from ages and ages and ages ago. And Era Zaharak does this interesting step where it doesn't actually revive the original pagan belief in its purest form as it existed, you know, centuries and centuries back, but it revives a faith that not necessarily is tainted, but is influenced by the reality of the Basque population. I mean, of course, that this faith fundamentally has Christian syncretism. This is really, really good, because again, would you really be able, once all the rites, once all the priests, once all the shamans, or whoever is responsible for the theocratic sort of caretaking in your culture, right? Once they are all gone, because Christianity pushed them out, would you really be able to completely reconstruct the faith as it once was? The answer is, of course, no. And in this case, they are basically saying we acknowledge this, and in reality, they have now Christian elements, because this is the way it went in. There are some stories that are combined. This thing is an evolving discipline. I really, really like this, because I always disliked it a bit when I was in CK2 and I revived a religion that we straight up didn't know anything about in character, right? So I like this idea where they don't do that anymore. This is a big step for me, even though it doesn't really change much, because it's just syncretism, right? It just gives you hostile instead of evil. It gives you compassionate as a virtue and callous sadistic as sins. But the core idea here is something that I love. It is believable that people return to the old faith, but what that means, what the old faith is something that shifts as, you know, basically time does. So big fan of this. Big fan of this introduction. I am very eager to introduce that eventually. Let's move on from religion though. Let's go to special buildings, dynasty tracks, and artifacts. For monuments and special buildings, there are some you might expect. The Great Mosque of Cordoba, the Basilica of Santiago, the Walls of Toledo. And some you might not. We've begun exploring having natural wonders as province features, so you will find the Rock of Gibraltar here too. I like that. I would like it even more if you offered the ability to say, you know what, Rock of Gibraltar, this thing is nice, but what would be even nicer is putting a church on it, putting a mosque on it, right? Declaring basically your victory. The Rock of Gibraltar plays a big role in symbolism in this region as well, of course. So I would actually like that even more, but I love the idea of just saying, you know what, natural wonders play a role because they do influence how the people that live around them actually see the world, and maybe even how people that, you know, are under your yoke see the world after you take over the Rock of Gibraltar, and respect it or disrespect it. Not that you can respect a natural feature, but basically, you know, acknowledging how important this was for the local history or not. I like the idea. I hope they expand on it as they go. While there are some Visigothic and Roman monuments here, we focused on things built over the course of the Middle Ages. There's accordingly also a few you can build yourself after the game has started. The person that wrote this, if I'm not mistaken, Hugo, or actually I'm not sure whether Hugo has written this part or Ola, but I know that Hugo, at least I think, is part of Paradox Thalassic, who made the outstanding, really, really great monument feature for Imperator Rome. Please, keep pushing. I want to see more monument features like this. I would like to build a monument. It ages, it becomes more important. All of the Imperator Rome principles. I love that stuff. I ate it up, and I would like to see it here as well. The fact that you can build them, of course, is good. Then you have these predetermined stages. The more we expand on that, the more I will love it. So definitely a big fan of them, not just integrating buildings that already exist, but also buildings that you can then build up, change, and use, and so on. Big fan of this entire direction. The more landmarks we have, and the more unique the landmarks can be, the happier I will be. This right here is the Great Mosque of Cordoba. Looks beautiful, maybe a bit of a high reflection right there, but that looks just very, very nice indeed. And this right here is, of course, the Tower of Hercules, also known as the Farum Brigantium. Let's take a look. So, hold of this holding. First of all, this holding gives extra text. Then you get embarkation cost minus 25% and naval speed plus 25%. That is pretty good. That is probably the province that you want to take if you are a Viking, right? You take this and you basically, you never pay for shipping again. It's all day one shipping and it's all good. The naval speed plus 25% is very, very good if you want to raid. I think this will be implemented in many speedruns. That is a very active community. I actually saw a stream by a really good fella. I saw a stream on Twitch just the other day who was speedrunning, and I'm not kidding, he was speedrunning every CK3 achievement. this will probably become a part of the strategy of that run. This ancient lighthouse is said to have been based on its more famous sister in Alexandria. Having guided seafarers for untold centuries, it remains important to Galicia's coastal trade. Some claim that you can glimpse Ireland's green coast from the top of this lonely tower, but gazing out, you see only endless sea. Very, very cool. I like it. I also like this guy's head, Count Gutierre. Very, very nice head indeed. We're adding new artifacts as well, of course, among them the famed Bells of Santiago, or in 1066 they're melted down and reforged state as aquamaniles in the Muslim court of Toledo. Aquamaniles, I don't know how to pronounce it. I know that this is basically a pitcher. You have water in it, water is dispensed, and you clean your hands, you wash your face, whatever you might do with it. Historically, of course, these were turned into mosque lamps, but that would have been hard to represent well in our 3D courts, so we went with aquamaniles instead. You'll also be able to find armillary spheres, scallop shells from the Pilgrim Road to Santiago, chessboards, Visigothic votive crowns, and much more. If you have the Royal Court expansion, of course, some will be impressive items that our art team devoted lots of attention to be proudly displayed in your court. Oh, wait a minute. I've read this earlier. Okay. Earlier, I looked at this and I was thinking, wait a minute, displayed in your court, this is an inventory artifact. Former Bells of Santiago, right? This, you can see this is the inventory interface. But I think I get it now. I think, since you can't expect every player that buys this DLC to own the Royal Court, you make these into inventory artifacts, because if they don't own the Royal Court and this is a court artifact and they will never see it, it won't be accessible to them. So you make it into inventory artifacts. And hopefully, I don't know whether this is confirmed, but hopefully, when you as a player then go and make this specific item into a court artifact, I would hope that it actually gets this exact shape that it has right here, the former Bells of Santiago. It looks like a lion, right? Al-Mansur forged these jugs from the molten slag of the Bells of Santiago. Though now used to ritually cleanse their owner's hands, their mere existence confirms the primacy of Islam over Christianity. It looks like a lion with a gun, but no, it's a lion with a, basically, this is where the water comes out. Quite interesting. It gives you a court grandeur bonus, even as it is an inventory artifact. Oh man, I would love a special interaction just in this, for this artifact, where you can reforge them, where you can make this into something else again, right? Either way, pretty neat. I think I understand why it's an inventory artifact. I really, really hope that this is represented in the Royal Court, and I do want to say, I am still positive that I am peeved about the fact that no Royal Courts are coming for free for Royal Court owners with this update, but again, the density, the sheer density of content in this flavor pack kind of just makes this, it nullifies it, right? There's so much else going on. Let's continue. The two new Dynasty legacies are Metropolitan and Coterie, expressing the themes of flourishing cities and interwoven, intrigue-riddled dynasties that seemed fitting for medieval Iberia. Let's take a look at the Coterie legacy, if that is how you pronounce it. A lot of words that I can't pronounce today, huh? You can gain various benefits related to your dynasty and its members, useful for diplomacy and intrigue. The reliable house perk will give you 10% of your council's primary skills. That is pretty good. While the ultimate perk in this legacy, Pragmatic Roots, allows dynasty members to disinherit their children for a prestige and tyranny cost. So that is pretty good. The question is, because I don't actually know, how often does the AI, and is the AI willing to use the disinherit button to begin with, right? Because ultimately, if you don't play like I do, you won't necessarily always or even often be the dynasty head. So like you can always disinherit them anyway via renown. This is without renown. They confirmed this in the comments as well. Either way, this is very, very interesting. Don't get me wrong here. I like this dynasty legacy over the second one. Let's talk about the second one. The Metropolitan legacy will aid you with development, construction, and prestige, unlock a unique expand cities decision, and give you some added motivation to build cities, city holdings in your realm. The Republican education perk introduces the town maven trait that dynasty members might receive if they are educated in a county with high development. Metropolitan is a great track if you prefer playing tall, building an economically strong realm. I think this is a bad dynasty legacy. I think, in principle, this is a great dynasty legacy. This could be outstanding if it connects you more to your Republican vassals. If it makes it so that maybe your rulers, or the relatives of your rulers, every now and again might suggest that they actually want to rule a city and be a merchant. But since trade and merchant republics and republican rulers really in general aren't a thing in CK3, at least not in the way that I want them to be, This sounds kind of boring. I like coterie, listen. I like that one. I like customs and such because it gives you more events, it gives you more decisions, it gives you interesting stuff. Metropolitan seems like basically is a trade. Maybe there are some events attached to it, right? But the actual roleplay involvement of this doesn't sound like something that I would ever pursue. I personally, I gotta tell you, listen, if you like roleplay, you might agree with me. If you don't like, if you are more there for the numbers, which is completely fine, by the way, you might disagree. But I gotta tell you, it doesn't motivate me to take it. If the benefit is you can get even higher development. Development already, if you really want to speedrun it, can be done to such an insane degree in CK3. I don't know. I don't think I would ever pick this. The strength that binds a house together and cities are the reflection of their builders' refinement, attracting nobles from all over the world. You know, a city builder. A medieval city builder for CK3 that you can zoom into would be nice, right? Okay, nonsense aside. Shared information unlocks shared secrets. Exchange known secrets with members of your house. Look at that stuff. Pottery is amazing. I will definitely play with that. That is so fun. If you have somebody that is your family and they have a secret, you have a secret, you can share it and you might learn that they are, I don't know, a deviant. Maybe they're a witch. Maybe you are telling them you're a murderer. This is how you kill your brother's wife and then you tell you... you sleep with your brother's wife. Then you go to your brother. Hey, want to exchange secrets? Yeah, I'm sleeping with your wife. That is the roleplay potential that I'm looking for. So... yeah, my opinion here is very, very, I think, decisive. I think Metropolitan would be super cool if republics existed, which they currently just don't. Anyway, let's move on, and this was written by Ola then, because now Hugo is coming in to talk about events and decisions. Very, very exciting. Of course, it was always clear there have to be many, many events. It's a flavor pack, right? This plays a big, big role. But man, I wasn't prepared for how they were really approaching this. Let's take a look. Struggle events. As mentioned above, struggle events help add a bit of chaos to the overall equation, presenting many opportunities themed around the current phase for cunning strategists to turn one's disaster into another advantage during the greater conflict. Struggle events are exclusive to characters partaking in the struggle. Very, very interesting, gives you unique stuff, and also means that the struggle really is a very specific phase. If you end that, then there will be no more struggle events. As I tour my castle grounds, a peasant elder approaches me. Great lord, please have mercy upon us and save our village from the tyranny of Count Lup of Burgos. He has neglected our settlement for far too long. The people yearn for a new ruler. They yearn for you, lord. Isn't this Burgos? Do they actually have, like, different localization in the game now? I don't think they're doing this, right? Do they do that? Where Rome is renamed Roma and that sort of thing? Not sure, but it's interesting to see that it's Burgos. You will be expected to capture Burgos within 10 years. You gain 40 stress because you're greedy. You will get an unpressed claim on County of Burgos. You gain promised liberation for 10 years, and every powerful vassal gains 15 opinion of you. Perhaps you can begin by paying tribute to our new lord, or you have my word, Burgos will be liberated. I have to assume that he is independent, right? This is not about one of your vassals. By the way, my god, this guy is That's tight clothing. This image depicts an event in which an old man is begging the player to rescue their village, its villainous owner. Right, very interesting. This is something... See, I'm looking at this right now, and they're talking this is a struggle event. Obviously, this is a hostile struggle event, right? But just because you take a decision here, like, I will liberate it, it doesn't sound like it actually is pushing anything forward. Like, it's not a catalyst, right? At least not natively, such as this event, in which the player is able to give their word in exchange for a claim on a county. Failing to keep your word will certainly have consequences. Death of a councilman. What's going on here? What a disaster. Amidst tensions that have been simmering in Tulyatula, a map of angry Mozarabs. Ooh, and wait a minute. Look at that. Look at those city walls. That is gigantic. I like it. I really, really like that. Amidst tensions of a mob of angry Mozarabs named my counselor Wali Abdul Rahman as the cause of their discontent due to his Muwaladi beliefs. As Wali Abdul Rahman of Talavera was on his way to my castle, the mob descended upon him and savagely beat him to death. Wali Abdul Rahman's people seem to blame me for what occurred, and Balashk, a Muwaladi community leader, has come before me to ask that I compensate the beleaguered Muwaladis of Tulyatula for this malicious act. Make things right with Wali Abdul Rahman's folk, hunt down the perpetrators, or deploy soldiers to restore order in Tulyatula. Very interesting. I assume this definitely sounds like a catalyst event to me. If I restore order, I'm suppressing the Mozarabs, I am sparking more hostilities, maybe this drives you more towards hostility, right? Some events will have you deal with unexpected losses, though you can still gain something from the situation if you play your cards right. Other events can grant you advantages when you least expect it, but tread carefully, as success is not guaranteed, and things can always take a turn for the worse. The secret to freedom. Emir Sadoun of Portugal is a prisoner at my mercy. They definitely have custom localization. Maybe I'm just losing it. Does vanilla right now use custom localization? Because obviously you have great mods. Great mods do this where, depending on your culture, different counties, duchies, and kingdoms and empires will have different names. Does vanilla do this? Am I losing it? I feel like they never did it, but now it seems to be everywhere. Portugal, right? It's clearly Portugal. This is the Duchy of Portugal. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. Who knows? I certainly don't. Being well aware of that, he brings forth a desperate plea. I will tell you Sultan Muhammad of Al-Andalus' secrets if you release me. Right, so we have him in our prison. This is us right here. Look at this. We seem to be fighting a war. I really like the way the Gambazon looks. That looks very nice. Tell me the secret and you will be a free man. Why strike a bargain when I can just torture you? Treacherous snake. Muhammad will hear about this, or I make no promises. Tell me and I might think about it later. Very, very interesting indeed. I like the alt text, by the way. So this is like if you are, for example, blind, you can still have this website be read to you, and it will actually explain what is in the image. Very, very cool. I like that they're doing this now. This is a neat event, obviously. Definitely pushes the situation further, the way people are dealing with the struggle and where you are in terms of struggle phases. I like that. I like these events that trigger as the struggle proceeds. Soul of Iron. A man called Guillermo has arrived at my court, claiming to be a master smith who has traveled far and wide. My lord, he says, my family has been sword makers in Madinat al-Muluk since ancient times, and once made falcatas for the army of Carthage. No alloy is as strong as that which is made in Iberia, and I can perfect it. I can make the world's finest weapons, but in return, you must give me command of the blacksmith's guild in Tulyatula, when they will see that I was better than them all along. Interesting. No, you shall work with the guilds to benefit us all. You shall have it. Make swords for my armies, or make me Iberia's finest blade, and the guild will be yours. Ooh, an artifact. I mean, I love getting artifacts. I'm always hungry for one. I will not anger the guild for your vanity. Very interesting event as well. I also gotta tell you, looking at this event in particular, I'm like, would guilds be something long term that comes like with a society update? I kind of would like it. I kind of would like it. Anyway, struggle events, though all related, are quite different in the opportunities, benefits, and challenges that they present, encouraging players to adjust their strategy as circumstances call. I would certainly start conquering my neighbors if I got a hold of some good steel, can't read, especially since it would help me get those catalysts I've been after for a while. Oh, I think I see I was completely wrong about saying this event surely will be a catalyst. No. These events are meant to push you towards catalyst action. I think that is the base idea here. And I like that. I think that's a great idea. Obviously, yeah, once you declare war for it, declaring war is a catalyst in a certain circumstance. I think that is the base philosophy. Ultimately, maybe some of this also actually pushes you directly via a catalyst, via the points, right? But I think the way this seems to be reading here, what Hugo is saying is that basically these are meant to push you into a certain playstyle. And I think that is really, really smart. Now that I have this on my radar, I think this is very, very smart, because these events support whether you are aggressive or non-aggressive. And if you're not aggressive, you won't go into hostility. You will go towards compromise and so on, right? Or conciliation. I actually like the approach of not making the events necessarily the catalysts, but making the events push you towards natively and naturally activating the catalysts. Very, very interesting. Flavor events. We have also included a variety of smaller flavor-focused events that help bring the Iberian Peninsula to life and create a greater breadth of content for players in the region to experience. Many of these events are inspired by recorded happenings in the region, while others are simply classic Crusader Kings events in a Mediterranean flavor. From a story about frightening thunderstones to the myth of legendary Christian mobsters to a peaceful siesta event, you can be sure you will be getting a full Iberian roster of fascinating, action-packed, and ridiculous events. This is the regional focus and the regional love that CK2's DLC system, even when it focused on a particular region, could not offer. I really, really like this. And this is why I, after reading or during reading this dev diary, have become more positive towards the flavor pack system as a whole, and I'm actively hoping that they will maintain it. Definitely not with as long as production time as Royal Court, okay, but I really like the base idea. The base idea points towards saying, we make flavor all the time, but this flavor will be so crazy specific that you will be remembering playing in Iberia compared to playing in France. It reminds me a lot of the philosophy behind Rice and Viet, so what Cybrex Khan does in his mods. I think that is a great philosophy because he gives you different decisions, different events, and so on, and ultimately leads you down a path where you know exactly where you are playing because of it. And that alone obviously adds flavor. You always ought to know where you're playing, but being reminded by the actual flavorful events and decisions is something very much unique. Again, very, very positive that they actually went this deep, you know, when it comes to the dynamic that you have there. Let's take a look at them. A dietary dilemma. 2 children were collecting clams from the beach in Valencia, when they came upon a carcass of colossal size. Beach dwellers claim that the flesh of this dead sea creature is still incorrupt and very tasty, but my Mufti Isa pulls me aside during the council meeting, seemingly concerned. Is the consumption of whale meat truly permissible to us Asharis, he ponders? I cannot make a ruling in this matter. We should wait for a statement from a very respected scholar, but you should forbid the people from eating the meat of this beast, just in case. Give me some of that meat. I must taste it. Very well, let us wait for a ruling, or it must not be eaten. I shall go there myself and burn it. You gain dread, gains opinion, and the carcass explodes. You gain the trade wounded. Yeah, the bloating right there. Seriously, honestly, I just noticed this. I really like that they're describing the image right there. That's so neat. That is such like a niche case of accessibility. I'm a big fan. Would you eat a whale? Would Allah approve? It probably tastes like chicken anyway. Atzo Ezor Stata. Is that how you pronounce this? Absolutely not, I assume. Passing through Valencia, and there you go. Now it's Christian, it's Valencia, not Valencia. Definitely customized localization, I like it. A peasant woman offers me a refreshing mug of milk with a taste sweeter than anything I've tasted before. What is this marvelous drink you've offered me? I asked, which she responds, milk from an earth element. There is no person who could resist this allure of this concoction on a hot summer day. No child who could avoid smiling when offered a mug. And no Valencian without a sweet tooth for it. This beverage isn't milk, it's gold. So from what I have learned, this is indeed... Yeah, I mean, it reads right down here. This recreates a Valencian story about how a popular drink came to be. From now on, Valencia shall exclusively grow earth elements. I love that. It's just your entire economy, earth elements. Every aspect of it, earth elements. Give me all your barrels. This will be at the center of my new feast, or I will not fall for the temptation of this drink. Be gone. I mean, that is just a lunatic decision right there. Sakaliba settlers. A band of several hundred pale-skinned Sakaliba, enslaved men and women from the eastern reaches of Europe, have escaped the realm of my acquaintance, Sultan Muhammad. Oh my god. I love this. This is actually great. Talk as he may about how treasured they were in his armies and his harem, they have braved many dangers to seek freedom in my land. We all have scars, their leader Mitrofan tells me, on our bodies or deep inside, but we are strong and determined. We long for some land of our own, where we can speak our ancestral tongue. If you let us settle in the city of Ozma, we would work hard to make it prosper. I love this. Something that we never talk about in the context of CK3 is that Venice, when it began, first of all, it benefited, of course, from the trade privileges it had via being a part, the Euro, of the Eastern Roman Empire. But second of all, it was a huge part, a massive part, in the Carolingian slave trade. When the Carolingians and the people that came afterwards, the Holy Roman Empire and such, fought against the Slavs in Poland and in Czechia, in Polabia and so on, when they fought against the Magyars, they took slaves, they sold them via Venice. This is crazy cool. This could be a slave coming from the Varangian slave trade or whatever, but this is such a unique take on this. And I would absolutely love this wild card, basically, where you settle, for example, I don't know, Ruthenians in Iberia. It would be so neat. I'm in love with this event, I think. I could even make you a mayor. You can stay, but your friends must go elsewhere. I will send you back to your master. I don't want to just make this guy a mayor. I want to make this guy a count. Let's take a look at the Mallorca School of Translators. With the spirit of conciliation reigning in Iberia, scholars from all the region have been dawdling in the libraries of my domain. Perhaps I could direct their energy into something fruitful. The learned wanderer Abdul presents an opportunity. My lord, he says, I've mastered a dozen tongues. It could help you organize a translation team. Let us scour the land for skilled translators and put them at work under your auspices. Mallorca could become a great beacon of enlightenment. I should spare no expense. Since you're so capable, you can do all the translation, or libraries are so much bother. I wonder where this would eventually lead. Maybe making it easier for you and your descendants to learn a language as long as you hold this county. Maybe just a learning buff. Who knows? Decisions. Anyway, I really like the events there. Again, I'm in love with the Sakaliba settlers. Decisions. Besides new events, Fate of Iberia also features unique decisions which can be taken throughout the duration of the struggle at specific phases. Let's take a quick look at 2 of them now. We've seen a lot of comments and requests in the previous dev diaries not to ignore the Jewish achievements of the period. Fate of Iberia, one of its decisions allows you to make the most out of these achievements by enabling you to sponsor a golden age of science. When it comes to Jewish history in Iberia, I heavily recommend watching some Sam Aronow. Sam Aronow, Samaronow, is a YouTuber who makes a bunch of videos on Jewish history, and he talked at length as well about Iberian Jews and the way they interacted with these societies that were, of course, present in Iberia, how these societies interacted with them from very friendly to very aggressive and hostile endeavors. But all of those are very interesting videos. Check them out for sure, and I love that this also actually goes in here. But I want you, for a second, as we walk through this, to strip this decision of the theme and look at this from a purely mechanical point of view, because it's actually way more interesting than you might initially think, at least according to me. Sponsor Jewish sciences. Iberia is home to many scholars from around the world. With a little funding, we could achieve a new era of learning and establish a hub for culture and knowledge sharing, which will reign supreme for decades to come. You gain Sponsored Golden Age for 120 years. Wilia of Tuliatula gains Epicenter of Golden Age for 60 years. One independent ruler involved in the struggle of each culture gains Present during Golden Age for 120 years. Right? Your culture head approves of you is a very interesting requirement, by the way. Genuinely, very interesting. Culture heads aren't usually used like this. This is a cool application. Let's take a look at what can be done. As the sponsor, you will receive various positive modifiers, though everyone else in the struggle will receive a weaker version of them too. This decision is not exclusive, and anyone can steal the Golden Age from you. Doing so will strip you of the modifier and replace it with its weaker counterpart. I fully expect this to be the correct kind of chaotic during multiplayer matches. Sponsored Golden Age. Math Renown plus 15%, Opinion of Different Faiths plus 10, Cultural Fascination Progress plus 35%. Present during Golden Age, Cultural Fascination Progress plus 20%. This is interesting to me, because when you look at this, in its core, this is a soft introduction of an institution. And it's a cooler way of introducing an institution. I keep talking about this because it's one of the very few elements that I personally like about EU4. And it's getting dark, you can see. But it's one of the very few elements that I like. But the drawback in EU4 is that once you do not have an institution, you don't have it. Period. That's the way it is. If you don't fulfill the requirements, screw you. Who cares? If you have it forever. In CK3, they're introducing something here that is a regional thing that spreads. Others can benefit from it as well. But who is actually the main proponent of it? Think of, for example, the age of patronage, Renaissance in Italy. It could be an Italian flavor pack. And you could determine who is the leading Italian city-state. By investing in art, by having political commitments and such, and then being able to click a decision that says, I will now be the sponsor of this thing. These, in my opinion, this thing right here is similar to what we had earlier with the religious councils. This, in my opinion, comes as close as we can possibly get to having a decision, to having something that is a soft introduction of institutions. And I love it. I think this is a great thing. I don't think this is a bad thing at all. I'm very eager to see this. It's definitely a cool multiplayer tool, don't get me wrong here. I think they're completely right here. What Hugo is writing here makes perfect sense. But I think this is a sleeper. Not resident sleeper. I think this is a hidden gem. Right? Where we're looking at something that could later spin off into something bigger, into a more generalistic mechanic. And let me turn on the light here. Give me a moment, yeah? I am actually very positive towards this. I think this could be so much more. This one and the Religious Council one, to me personally, from what we see here in the dev diary, feel like this flavor pack's version of the Euro petition. Anyway, let's move on. Definitely tell me what you think about this. I'm very positive towards these two. Of course, this decision isn't just a couple of modifiers strapped to a button. Sponsoring a Golden Age will lead to one of 3 random events that provide you with the opportunity to easily recruit highly talented scholars and members of the scientific community. Golden Age Science, Starry-Eyed Surgeon. My liege, please make this fool listen. The surgeon performed a cataract operation on my right eye, but now refuses to fix my left, exclaims Wali Hudhail. The operation was only successful because the conjunction of the stars was perfect. You must wait 12 more years to ensure another successful operation, replies the frustrated Dr. Afalku. As regent, it is my duty to settle such matters. Should I interfere with astrology and risk a botched surgery? It actually makes me think now. Definitely watch Sam Aronow, by the way, because Sam Aronow had a lot to say about the Reformation to Judaism and its different schools as they happen via Iberia. And I think this could be pretty interesting as content as well, because Sephardi and Ashkenazi character, of course, spawn with certain religions as their default. And I think sponsoring a golden age of the Jews in Iberia could coincide with such a flip, where all of a sudden these characters spawn with a different faith or with a different majority faith. Anyway, quite interesting. This is a wonderful opportunity for Duria to learn medicine. Who is Duria? I don't know. The stars have no bearing on your ability to perform the operation, or indeed, it may be best to wait until conditions are favorable. Yeah, okay. This image depicts a follow-up event to the previous decision. A doctor refuses to operate on your elderly vassal because the stars are not aligned correctly. This is based on a real story. Pretty cool. Making the doctor wait will add them to your court, while performing the operation may help you improve relations with your elderly vassal. Of course, under the right mindset, this can also become a learning opportunity for your young child. Pre-industrial cataract surgery was a lot more successful with a young assistant present. It is an insane decision. Quite cool. I love this regional flavor, I really do. Now, for a more standard decision example, in classic CK3 fashion, we also have plenty of decisions to form titles and gain control over land, such as the Iberian Foothold decision, which encourages large foreign powers to make a dash for their piece of the metaphorical Iberian cake by letting them end the struggle from the outside. Though the military investment will certainly be large, and the many disunified states in Iberia won't take their conquest lying down. Iberian Foothold. This is really cool. The weak and warring states of Iberia open the peninsula's doors to outside invaders. If one could declare themselves the new Christian leader of the region or simply a glorious invader, much could be gained. The effects are as follows. Every de jure kingdom of Hispania which satisfies the below conditions will become de jure part of the Empire of Francia. This is, I assume, if you are the Emperor of Francia. Yeah, you hold an empire title that is not Hispania. So it basically would add it to your region, or maybe just to Francia, I don't know. The Iberian struggle ends. You hold at least 50% of Christian faith counties in the Iberia region. Basically, what this means is, you are Christian, you intervene in the region, you take control of the Christians, they have no more autonomy. That is what it means to end the struggle from the outside here, right? And then they're added to your empire, to your sphere. You are forcibly saying, there will be no struggle, there is no fighting, the south doesn't belong to us, the north belongs to me, rather than belongs to itself. You hold and complete control of the Euro Kingdom of Hispania. At least 50% of this title's the Eurus counties are Catholic. This title borders held the Euro land of an empire you hold, which is not Hispania, right? It's most likely always going to be Francia. It could be Rome, for example, right? It could be the Maghreb. I think all of those are options. Very cool stuff anyway. That is definitely a very cool approach. It gives you a reason to interact with Iberia from the outside and to get dramatically involved. If you have a king that is expansionist, that is maybe very zealous, maybe this is exactly the decision that you are pursuing. I like it. Big fan. Closing comments. We hope the content displayed in this dev diary has gotten you excited about our upcoming flavor pack, and look forward to hearing your thoughts on the discussion comments below. I'm a big fan. 50 minutes for a flavor pack dev diary. Can you believe this? But that's just how much there is in this. Am I still peeved about the throne rooms? Yes, I am. But the density of content and the quality of content as it presents itself here, meaning it's not just general flavor, it's not just fairly generic. This deep dives into Iberian history, and I think presents it in a light that Crusader Kings II was never even close to pulling off, and Crusader Kings III as it is as well, of course, is not close to pulling it off, and I would argue is the most detailed depiction of any specific region Crusader Kings as a franchise has ever done. And with that in mind, I can't be too mad at No Throne Wars. I'm still mad, okay? don't mistake this. I'm still mad, but I can't be too mad about it because Northern Lords was a fine DLC. For the price, $6.99, right? It's really negligible. Especially if you, for example, like me, I bought the Royal Edition. It's negligible. However, in comparison to this, Northern Lords needs to step up its game, okay? What the Iberians are doing here is outstanding. I'm very, very excited what the different content designers, what Ola, Hugo, and Veronica, and so on, of course, have done here. Really, really neat stuff. Big fan, and let me know what you think in the comments. This was my conclusion to this. For the moment, I'll let you go. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you later. Alligator.